Hi guys, Dr. Justin Southey here, going through semester test 1, and I'm looking at question 14 here. This was quite a fun question where you had to reason out who Edward sent Valentine's cards to, and you had to choose. He had to choose between Alex, Cynthia, and Busisiwe. And you were asked to use the following clues to help you figure out to whom Edward sent a card. Now this was very, very important. Here you were asked to show all steps. Some of you did some working out and you got an answer of Edward sent a card to somebody, and it might have been half of a right answer, but you didn't get all your marks because you didn't show all your steps. Always show all your steps. It did say on the front of the question paper, but this question in particular said in the question show all steps, so you needed to show how you got to that answer. We're going to use logic here. We're going to assign letters to these propositions, and we're going to go through them one by one. So the first one, A, says if Edward sent a card to Alex. Okay, so we need a proposition. Let's use it P. Let P be Edward sent a card to Alex. Okay, so we're taking care of that one. That's P. Here we've got then Edward did not send a card to Busisiwe. Okay, it's got a did not in here, so let's use the not R. We're going to have R as Edward sends a card to Busisiwe. So let R be E send to Busisiwe, and this sentence here then passes as not R. B, Rajesh sent a card to Cynthia. Okay, we don't have something for that yet, so let's let P R. Okay, I've done in a funny order, but that doesn't really matter. So let Q be Rajesh sent a card to Cynthia. That's going to be Q. Or Edward sent a card to Busisiwe. Well, we've already got something for that. Edward sent to Busisiwe, so that's R over there. C, if Edward did not send a card to Alex. Okay, we've got Edward sent a card to Alex, so this here is just not P. Then Edward sent a card to Cynthia. We don't have something for that, so let's let PQRS be Edward sent to Cynthia. That's S over there. And finally, Rajesh did not send a card to Cynthia. We've already got Rajesh sending a card to Cynthia, so this is going to be not Q over there. Right, now let's translate these sentences all into our new mathematical logic. We've got if P, so if Edward sent a card to Alex, if P, so A, we can rewrite it as if P, then Edward did not send to Busisiwe, so not R. P implies, P implies not R. Statement B, Rajesh sent a card to Cynthia, well that's Q, or Edward sent a card to Busisiwe, well that's R, so we've got Q or R. Statement C is if Edward did not send a card to Alex, so that's not P, then Edward sent a card to Cynthia. That implies S. And finally, D gives us Rajesh did not send a card to Cynthia. Well, that's not Q, because Q is Rajesh sent a card to Cynthia. D is simply not Q. Okay, so now we've got our statements in mathematical logic. Let's now use them and use our logic valid arguments to work out who Edward did send a card to. Right, so we've got P implies not R, Q or R, not P implies S, and not Q. Usually you start with this little guy. We are going to use not Q with something else. Now this one doesn't include Q, so it's not going to be that one. This one doesn't include Q, but B does. So we've got B gives us Q or R, and D tells us that not Q is true. Now you know from the elimination law that if you've got Q or R and you're told that Q is not true, then R must be true. So from this we conclude, therefore, R. That's statement 1. And let's see what that translates back into in the English. So R is E sent a card to B. Edward sent a card to Busisiwe. So we know that Edward sent a card to Busisiwe. Therefore, Edward sent card to Busisiwe. Right, so we've got that Edward sent a card, but we haven't used all our information yet. It's possible that maybe Edward sent a card to somebody else. So let's carry on. And some of you stopped here and you got part marks, but it actually turns out that Edward is a bit of a player and he's sending cards to more than just Busisiwe. So let's carry on. We've now worked out R. So let's go and find another statement that uses R. Maybe we can use that to work out something else. And in fact, A here is P implies not R. We also know from part 1 that R is true, and now we're going to use our contrapositive that P implies not R, or modus tollens rather. So P implies not R, and we've got R, which is not R. So this here is not true. Therefore we can conclude that this is not true. Therefore, not P. What is not P? Well, that's Edward sent a card to Alex. So this is not the case. So we know that Edward did not send a card to Alex. So that's not going to be one of our solutions. And then finally, we've got a not P here. Let's see if we can use our last statement here, which is C. That not P implies S. We also know from part 2 that not P is true. Now we use modus ponens, and we've got not P implies S. We've got not P is true, and whenever not P is true, we know that S is true. Therefore, S. And S is Edward sent a card to Cynthia. Therefore, Edward sent a card to Cynthia. So Edward actually sent a card to Busisiwe and Cynthia. So your full marks are Edward sent card to Busisiwe and Cynthia. So just be careful when you're doing questions like this that you use all of your information, but also some of you got down to this last answer and wrote that Edward sent a card to Cynthia, but you didn't translate this into the English sentence, and you didn't notice that Edward sent a card to Busi, so you didn't get full marks there. It was very important that you used all your information and that along the way you check what your information is back in English. So it's a little bit tricky question. We hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit fun. It did take a little bit